Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do this photorealism over here, I'm just going to draw a line with my pen tool. I'm going to hold Shift. Notice that pressing Shift locks that line into a vertical, a diagonal, or a horizontal, right? 45 degrees. Okay, and so that gives me that line. Okay, and then I want to center it on this object. I'm going to Shift click here, and then let go of Shift, and I'm going to click a second time, which is going to give me key object there, which is not working for some reason. So let's go here, Shift click, click again. There we go. Now we've got a key object, and I'm going to center it horizontally and vertically there. And that doesn't move my circle, but it moves my line. Okay, so with that line like that, I'm now going to highlight it. I can hide my guides now. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to hit the rotate tool, which is R, double click on it. And then I'm gonna guess that these lines are a 60th. It looks like it's in between this, but then lined up. So I'm gonna do 360 divided by 60. Okay, and that's gonna give me one of those ticks. Now I don't need to go around the entire thing because it's spanning that, and so I don't need to spin it in a complete circle. I can just do 180 degrees and it'll give me the complete circle. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm gonna give myself some measurements here. But before I do too much here, I'm gonna grab all of these and I'm gonna put them. We can get rid of. Didn't lock it down. Lock, Command 2. Okay, let's get rid of these guys. Okay, and so I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna look at my layers panel, and let's go in. Let's grab where this is. It's on layer 4. Okay, and it's probably everything. Yep. So it's all of these. So I'm gonna grab all of these. Okay, create a new layer. I'm just gonna go lines. And I'm going to grab all of these and I'm going to put them on their own layer so that I can turn them on and turn them off, and I can delete them later when I need them, or I can duplicate that layer if I want. And I'm going to come back over here. Okay. So now that I'm over here, I'm going to lock this for a minute because I don't want to accidentally grab those. Okay. I'm going to lock the rest of this as well because I don't want to accidentally grab that. And I've got my one layer here that isn't locked. Okay. And so inside of that layer, I'm gonna create now. I'm gonna unlock this shape, and I'm gonna make a copy of it, paste in front. I'm gonna bring that to the top of that layer, and I'm just gonna move it into layer 4, and then I'm gonna re-lock this. Okay, so now I've got this shape. Okay, and this is where I'm gonna turn my guides back on, and I'm gonna throw a couple more guides down to figure out distances. Okay. And so this shape is going to go inside, and I'm going to hold Shift and Option while I do that, okay? And I'm just going to kind of eyedrop that a little bit. For right now, I'm just going to make that a totally different color so that I can get the rest of these lines here. And so let's go copy, paste in front again. And I'm going to come inside to that one. And we'll change colors here in a minute back to what they need to be. But what I'm doing here is I'm looking at kind of all of the different shapes that I've got. Copy, paste in front again. Switch to my tool here. I want to go in, and I'm just trying to get the size of things the way that they should be. Okay, so I've got that. I've got that. Okay, so now if we look really closely, you see that we've got two kind of difficult things. We probably won't have time to do the second one, but this one's easy, right? This looks complicated, but it's actually quite easy. And so what we're looking at here is we see these ridges like a record player that's going around here. It's brighter over here, it's darker over here. It's kind of a transition from a lighter medium value to a higher value to a darker value, okay? And so there's a few things that we can do there, but the first thing that we need to do is get those ridges. Now you can count them if you want. I'm gonna kind of eyeball it. And so I'm gonna come in here like this, and I'm going to grab this outer shape, okay, and I'm going to make a copy of it. Copy, paste in back, and I'm going to pull it out just a little bit like that. And this is going to be one of the few times that I am going to use a stroke in this, okay? And then I'm going to copy, paste in back again, and I'm going to pull that out to the edge like that, okay? Then I'm going to grab those two shapes, and I'm going to go to Object, Blend, Make, and then I'm going to go to Object, Blend, Blend Options, and now I can come in and I can say Specified Steps, and I can give myself something like that. And I'm going to kind of eyeball it here to see how much or how little. And I can still adjust these. So now that I'm looking at this, these lines are kind of getting in my way. Those are getting in the way. And so I just want to look at what's going on so I can kind of see it. Okay, so I'm going to change this pink here to maybe a darker value. Okay, I'm going to grab this guy and I'm going to go a lighter value on the stroke. Okay, and then I'm going to probably decrease the weight of the stroke here. Okay, so we're getting close, okay, on that, and we can continue to kind of work with that in a minute, but for right now, I think that's pretty good. Okay, let's color this. That's going to be that kind of lighter value, but I noticed that as it tapers down, it kind of fades out, and so I'm going to add a Gaussian blur to this. So I'm just going to go Gaussian blur, but just a really tight Gaussian blur. Now I can't see what's going on with that, so I'm going to hit Command H. That hides that edge. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to go back to that shape, which I should have selected. Yep, still selected. And I'm going to go to my Appearance panel, and I'm going to click on Gaussian blur, and I'm going to increase this a little bit. You can see how it's changing as I kind of adjust that. So that's good there. That's fine. Okay, so we've got that. Let's come back here. Any questions yet? Okay, so far so good. Okay, so this one in the middle. This has a pattern in it. And so you could choose any of the values in that pattern, but I'm going to choose the darker value right now, just to give us a little bit of that differentiation. We'll deal with that pattern a little bit later. Okay, so that's giving us some of that action. Okay, we've got some of this, and so now I think I'm ready to start adding some of these marks. So let's do the easiest thing first. I'm going to give myself these thicker hour marks, and then these thinner minute marks. Okay. Now a very simple way of doing that is to come in, and I'm going to create an object. And then I'm going to do draw inside of that object. And so as I'm seeing this, it falls just short of the edge and just short of the edge. So I'm going to grab, and I've got to go Command H again so I know what I'm highlighting. And let's unlock the layer that's locked there. I'm going to grab this guy, and I'm going to go copy, paste in front, and I'm going to come just inside of that edge. Okay. And then I'm going to go copy, paste in front, and I'm going to go just outside of that edge. Okay. And now with this object, if I put something inside of it, like I go over here and I do draw inside by pressing Shift D twice or clicking here on the thing there, and then I change the color to something dark like this, then when I draw, it gets clipped inside of that. Still with me? No questions?
Wait.
Go ahead.
So you took the big circle in the back, you copied and pasted in front, and you moved it down a little bit, but why did you do that?
I did that because as I look at these hour marks, they stop short of the edge of the case and they stop short of this. And so I had this shape that went from the edge of the case to the kind of ones that we did the blending on. So I created a new shape to block this edge and a new shape to kind of clip that edge. And so there's a number of ways that you could do this, but I'm doing it that way. And so as I get this, I can take this object, okay, and I can make it go all the way across and be as thick as I want, okay? And then I can center that, right? And so I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab this object and that object. I'm going to make this the key object in that, and I'm going to go center, center. And now I have that. Now I have that mark. And so now I'm going to come in. I'm going to deselect, and I've got to use my white arrow tool because this is inside of a clipping path, but I just want that shape. Okay, and then I'm going to hit R for rotate, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to go 360 degrees divided by 12 because there are 12 hours in this circle that we're doing. And then I press Command D to duplicate that action. And that gives me all of my hour marks, okay? Then I'm going to grab this guy. Oops, I got to use the white arrow tool. So I'm going to grab this guy here, and I'm going to go copy, paste in front, and then I'm going to thin this out while I hold Option so it goes towards the center so I don't have to realign it. Okay, and now I'm going to do all of the minute marks that are in between those hour marks. Same thing, double click on this, and this time I'm going to do 360 divided by 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour. And I click copy, and I press Command D, and that gives me all of those marks. Okay, now the cool part about this is because I have this in a clipping path, you'll notice a few things, right? You'll notice that these marks actually get darker on the edges and a little bit washed out in the middle, okay? And so they're raised a little bit. My guess is that if we were to look at a side profile of that it's gonna look like this. That you're gonna get a bit of that raised edge because I'm seeing a flat surface in the middle that doesn't go to the corners, and I'm seeing a change in direction on those. And so we'll keep that in mind here in a minute, but for right now, we can do some easy things, and let's just give ourselves a little bit of shadow on that edge, right? And so I'm going to press Shift D to get out back into draw normal over there, okay? And I'm going to come in right here, and let's grab this guy, and with this guy selected, I'm going to press Shift D twice. So I'm going to Shift D, Shift D. Now I'm inside of that, okay? And I'm just going to change my fill color to something really bright so we can see what's going on. And in fact, I'm going to change it to something like this in a radial. And let's make the inside of that very different as well. Okay, so now we've got this radial gradient. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. And there we go. Okay. Now let's take G here, which is going to bring up our gradient annotator. And I'm going to move that to the edge. And I'm going to move this to the edge as well like that. I might even zoom in here just to give myself this, and I want that fall off to happen maybe outside of this, just to give myself just a little bit of that, okay? Now I'm just going to change these. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to change it to white, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to change it to a very saturated and dark yellow or orange. Okay. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to blend this, and so I'm going to come over here. Oh, I've got to get out of the gradient and do the whole shapes. Now we're on the whole shape, and then I can go give me multiply, give me overlay. Looks like multiply wins, and then I can kind of drop this up or down based on how much or how little I want. I can always go back to my gradient annotator and kind of adjust that as needed. Okay, but that gives me a little bit of that, right? And maybe that's a little bit too much or too little here, but while I'm still in draw inside, let's look at our reference again. Okay, I'm seeing that shadow up here. I'm not seeing that shadow down here as much, but I am seeing kind of a big general washed out area there. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go behind this layer. So I'm just going to kind of wash this area out with a big giant. Let's change this to a color that we can see. Oops, I had something selected. So let's deselect, and then we'll change our color. And now I'm just going to come in with a big giant deal like that. Okay. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to go add a Gaussian blur. Let's blur that way out so it's a big kind of fuzzy blur. Okay, click OK. We'll drag this down to somewhere around there. That's fine. Okay, and then I'm just going to change this. I'm going to change this to kind of one of these kind of brighter colors there, and that just kind of controls that for me. Okay, and then I can come in. I'm going to make a copy of that. Copy, paste in front. I'm going to shrink the copy down a little bit because localized right down in here. No, come back. Oh, I lost it. There we go. Localized right down in here, I've got kind of this area that is a little bit more that color. And so I'm going to grab that color, and I feel like that's not changing anything for me. Oh, it's because I'm in the wrong shape. So this is where we need to be a little bit careful. I'm in this outside shape, and I was trying to change the stuff on the inside. Okay, so I'm gonna pull out of that. Command X will copy that to my clipboard there, so that I can paste it or cut it to my clipboard. So I'm gonna grab this guy, and this is where I might start naming things. And so this is gonna be edge of ridges. Okay, so underneath my edge of ridges, I'm going to add some of this stuff, and so I'm going to come in, and I'm just going to create a new layer, and I'm going to put this layer underneath edge of ridges, and inside of that layer is where I'm going to paste this circle here, and we will move that circle that I just pasted, which I lost. Where did it go? Is it this one? No. I don't know where it went. All right, can we paste it again? That's that one. And then it is here. Oh, and it's a clip group. I don't want the whole clip group. No, so let's get rid of this. Okay, so I'm just going to go and let's just create a new one here because I'm messing this up. Okay, so you can see that it's behind that. It's in front of this. I can kind of go in here. I can apply the last settings that I had in Gaussian blur. So that's going to give me that. Okay. And this is where it could be useful to have another clip group, but have that clipping path in that clip group be invisible. And so this is where I'm going to grab this outside shape here. And that might be locked. And so this is where we need to start naming things. I don't want that. I want, that's the main case. Those are guides. Edge of ridges is right here. What's the one right outside that? An ellipse. I don't know where that is. Let's delete that. What's this path? Nothing. Getting closer. Nope. Nope, we're going inside there, and those are all guides. So what is this one? That's that one. Command 2 to lock it. That's that one. That's those. I want that shape. So that's in that clip group, and that's that. Okay, so I want a copy of this ellipse because I want to make a different clip group that's on top of all of this stuff. And so I'm just going to drag this down to my plus, and then I'm going to drag that out. Okay, so now I have this one, and I'm going to name this edge of face. Okay. And that's going to go underneath. That's that one. Okay, so I'm going to grab this ellipse and I'm going to cut it to my clipboard. Okay, I'm going to highlight edge of face here. Okay, and I'm going to go. I want it to have no fill or stroke, and then I'm going to do draw inside. Okay, and I'm going to paste to draw inside, and now I can have stuff that is not hitting my ridges, but is on top of both of those shapes. That was probably more complicated than it needed to be. But I'm going to come in and kind of wash this area out, and let's kind of multiply that, and then drop the opacity down. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at these. So I'm going to get out of draw inside. Okay. Let's make ourselves one of these guys. And those are, like I said, I think they're 60. Okay. But they only line up with the hour marks. And so I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to turn my lines back on. Okay. I am going to lock all of my other layers and unlock lines. And I'm gonna make a copy of lines because I'm gonna use it to cut stuff, and so I'm just gonna hide and lock that other one, so in case I screw this up, I still have that to kind of go back to. Okay, so then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna say, okay, let's get a rough measure. It's about there, okay, and so I'm just gonna make a circle that is in these. So these lines as they stand are not grouped, and I'm going to group them by pressing Command G so that I can use them as a single unit, which will make sense in a minute because I'm about to align stuff to them. And so I'm going to create a circle here, okay, and then I'm going to select my line group, and then I'm going to select my line group again, which makes it the key object in my alignment. And then I can align that circle to it. Okay, and then I can deselect and I can grab this guy. And I'm going to pull this out to where I think the edge of that is right here, which is right about there. I'm just going to drop the opacity down so this isn't as intense. Okay, and then I'm going to copy, paste in front. And this second circle is going to give me this edge, which is probably right about there. Okay, now I'm just going to highlight everything in this layer, and I'm going to take my Shape Builder tool, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab this one and this one, and I want to do this, so I'm going to turn on my cursor swatch preview just so that I can color these, right? And so I'm going to color them red just so I can see the ones that I've done. And you'll notice that I'm going to one side of these. We'll rotate them all in a minute so that they all kind of fit in the right spot. I don't think I did that right, but no, we're good. Okay. All right, so now with everything selected, I am going to hit V here, which is going to give me my black arrow tool. I'm just going to shift that over so that those all kind of line up. And then all I have to do with everything locked is I'm going to get out my magic wand tool, and I'm just going to select all of the things that are similar. And so the magic wand, you can tell it what to select. And I selected a very tight tolerance on fill color. And so when I clicked on this, it just gave me all of those, and I can ignore the rest. And so this can go away, and these two can go away. Okay, and now I have that. For some reason, that feels like it's a little bit wider than it should be, and so we might want to tighten that up by adding more lines or something like that. But let's deal with just one of these here, and I'm gonna take this one, okay, and I'm going to unlock these layers Still no questions on anything? You guys still with me, or are we so bored that we've totally checked out? Command-Alt-2. There we go. Okay, this is the one I want. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy paste in front of my reference. I'm going to just hit this with the square and then Command-7 to give me this little guy here. And I'm just going to do this so that I have something to look at that is closer than the other one. And I'm definitely off in my size. So we could measure that a little bit differently. First thing I notice on this is that the corners are slightly rounded. And so I'm just going to put a little bit of rounding on those corners, right? And then I'm just going to start layering stuff in, okay? And so eyedropper tool is going to get me kind of close, but not be totally on. And so now I'm just going to start like looking at what's going on here, okay? And so as I look at what's going on here, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to go Shift D twice to do draw inside. And I'm just going to start putting some rectangles in. And so I'm going to grab that edge like that. I want that to be a little bit darker. There we go. Okay, and I can kind of rotate this. I can add a Gaussian blur to it. That's way too big of a Gaussian blur. So I just go back to my appearance panel, I click on the Gaussian blur, and I can kind of adjust it. Now I am looking for not the size of this, because I can move that around, but the transition of it. It's a pretty tight transition. And so I'm just going to move that down. And then, because I'm in draw inside, I'm going to use my white arrow tool to go there. Okay. And I am going to either overlay, which makes it go away, or multiply. Multiply looks like it's a winner here. And then as I'm looking at this, Command H, so that I can see what's going on, I'm seeing a touch of green on that. And so I'm just going to shift this over a little bit and darken it up touch, maybe a little bit more saturation. Okay. Bring Command H back, and I am going to copy, paste in back, Command, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to change the blending mode of the copy that I did to a screen or overlay, and then I'm going to change the color of it to be much brighter and desaturated, and then I'm going to shift it up, and that's going to give me that little brighter spot right there. Okay, and now that green is maybe a little bit too much, and so I'm just going to knock this back down, be a little bit more saturated. That's a little too dark. Okay, and then I've got the same thing going on the other sides, and so this is where I'm going to just jump into this clip group here, and I'm going to grab both of these guys, and I'm going to make a copy of them, and then I'm going to rotate that copy so it goes along this edge. Oop. Got to use your white arrow tool in that case. And so let's grab our rotated copies there. That's both of those. Okay, white arrow tool because we're inside of a clip group. And then I'm just going to kind of eyeball that a little bit. It looks like I lost this one. Did I delete it? No, we'll just do that again. Copy, paste in front. And I drop this outside edge like that, and I'm going to darken that up a bit and saturate it a little bit. Okay. All right. Along this edge, I'm showing you a bunch of different techniques just because I want to give you guys options. I'm just gonna put a line here with my pen tool, and I'm going to add a highlight to that stroke. And let's add some weight to that stroke. Let's make it much brighter than that. We'll just make it a pure white, and then we'll back off of it from there. Okay, and Command H, and I'm going to tighten that up a little bit, something like that. Let's add a little bit of a Gaussian blur to that. Very little. Okay, and you'll notice that the order of things matters in this case. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to drop it behind that one down there. That gives me a little bit of that highlight. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, and I've already chosen that Gaussian blur, so I can just go apply Gaussian blur there. Let's go Command H again so we can kind of see where that line is. Okay, that's great. I'm going to grab a copy of this line, copy, paste in front, and then I'm going to make this one just a very dark color. Use my arrow tools to kind of move that to the edge. Command H so I get rid of that line so I can see what's going on. That's way too dark, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm going to make it fuzzier, and then I'm going to blend it. Man, overlay is not my friend today. Okay, and this is a little trick that I like to do. I'm just going to copy, paste in front, and I'm going to knock that little one off the edge as well. So just something like that. I feel like I've lost that highlight, so I'm going to change my layer order here. This is where you might name some layers. I can't see what's going on because I don't have Command H done. And so let's look. There's that one on the edge, there's that one, and there's that one. I'm going to put this one on top of those two. Maybe on top of just the one, and then move it in just a little bit. Okay. Then let's come across here. I'm just going to grab like a whole square and let's shift that over. And this is where I'm just going to kind of shift the color of this a little bit. And so I'm just going to grab let's grab that color. Okay. And I'm going to blend the whole thing down. Let's give ourselves a multiply. Let's try just normal and then just dropping the opacity quite a bit. This is a good way to kind of unify colors there. So I kind of got that. Now I'm getting a little bit of this bend here. It stops short of that. And so I can continue to tweak this, right? I'm going to come in now and, oh, that went to 0. That's not even helpful. Go up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to hit A, right? Let's grab that. Command H again so we can see what we're grabbing. It's not letting me grab it. Command H, where is it? Not that one. That's the one. And let's zoom in here. I'm just going to have this turn that corner. So I'm going to add an anchor point here, and I'm going to take this guy, pull him down, but I want that to taper off on the edges there. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go taper. So that'll kind of taper to a point on that. I'm going to round this just a little bit to give us a little bit of that rounded edge. Still no questions?
You still have the Gaussian blur.
Yeah, and you can tell because you can go in and you can turn the Gaussian blur on or off in your appearance panel. And so yeah, I still have a little bit of that Gaussian blur. Actually, I'm probably going to tighten that up even more. That's too much. Part of the problem right now is I'm working too small. Document effect raster settings. Yeah, we're good there. Okay, you want to make sure your document effect raster settings are at 300. Okay, so that's going to give us kind of the inside of that, and I could keep going a little bit here or there, but you get the idea. I am gonna kind of give myself a little bit of an orange warm here and a little bit of a red warm there, just to show you guys what that can do. So I'm going to come in like this, and let's just go very saturated red with a Gaussian blur, and we'll blur that out quite a bit. Something like that, and then I'm going to blend it down, okay? And so I'm going to come in and we'll do like an overlay or a soft light, hard light. Hard light I like in this case, and then I'm just going to drop that down just so it just gives you just a touch of that color. And then I'm going to do another one of these where I just, let's go white arrow tool, and we'll just take a copy of that, and let's turn the opacity up here. And I'm going to make this a little bit more yellow. Okay, and then we'll turn, and let's go with a screen or an overlay, and then we'll drop this down just a hint of color so we don't have any gray. Okay, so that's that. You got a little bit of that. Now I'm gonna get out of this, okay, and I'm gonna Command D again to do draw normal, okay. And so now that we've got this, I'm gonna select this whole thing, right, and we can come in and we can name this whole clip group 11 mark, okay. And underneath 11 mark, and you can go draw behind if you want. I'm just going to give myself some basic shadows. And so the easiest way to do that is to take this clipping path and make a copy of that and then pull that out, right? And so now I've got this path. I'm going to put that underneath, and I'm going to make it dark and rich and fuzzy, but tight. And that's going to give me a little bit of that Gaussian blur. And I'm just going to bring this down and over a little bit to give us some depth. And then let's multiply on that. And so that kind of adds that effect, okay? Now, as you're looking back and forth at these, mine is way too warm. This is very washed out. And so I'm going to continue to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, okay? But once I have one of these, right, I can grab this guy, and I can grab this underneath, right? And I'm going to grab those. I'm going to put them on their own layer. Okay. If I want, I might even group them up. Okay. And then I'm going to rotate this. Now, here's where it gets a little bit dangerous. Let's turn our grids back on. I'm going to come in here like this, and I'm going to rotate by alt-clicking with R. Okay. And I'm going to go, give me a 30-degree copy of that. And that'll put this on all of those. Okay, we'll have to hide, the other ones. Okay, but this is what you don't want to do. You don't want to leave those like that because the light's changing, but I don't have to build all of those shapes, right? And so now I can just go in with my white arrow tool, and adjust those shapes, the location of them, and maybe the opacity and a touch of color or blending here or there, but I don't have to build a new one every single time. Okay, final questions?
How did you get that texture again? For the circle?
This one here?
Yeah, the ridges.
Yeah, okay, so that's called blending. And so blending just works like this. I just did a circle that had a stroke, copy paste in front, hold down Shift and Alt while I'm doing that, and that gives me 2 circles. And so then I just go like this. I grab both circles and I go to Object Blend Make, and then I go to Object Blend Options, and then I like specified steps or specified distance. Almost smooth color almost is never good. And then you're just going to choose the number of lines that you have in between. Now the cool part about this is it will, Object Blend Make. If you guys need to go ahead and go. I know class is over. Blend Options, specified steps, and we'll go whoop, like that. And then if I click OK, then I can select one of these, and you can do all kinds of interesting things with it, and it will blend. And so you'll see that it's blending in color or whatever else. And so this blending, you can go from a circle to a square, and you can blend it. You can go from colors to other colors, and it will blend it. And then you can come in and you can choose the steps that you've got, and it'll give you all of those steps in between. And then it's live, so I can come in and I can edit and change, and it'll kind of do that type of blending. Okay, I'll put this video up on YouTube, and then it'll kind of go along with the other ones. See me in my office. Get as far as you possibly can before Tuesday, and I will just critique everybody's stuff on Tuesday. We'll talk about texture and stuff next week.